Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the Pierce County Council and Tuesday study session. We have all members present. Councilmember Yambe is listening and we're trying to get him moved over as a panelist.
He's
So,
on. Oh, wait.
no, that was Mr. Shaw. We'll
There he
keep
is.
working on it. There he is. We got it. So we now have all members present. And we will start with our first item of business, which is our legislative update. Mr. Taylor, to kick us off.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So we do have Mr. Shaw, our state legislative affairs coordinator, available today. Mr. Shaw will provide a week 2 session update. In your packet for the Tuesday study session is information on bills. I updated that information this morning. Mr. Shaw provided me an update yesterday, and so I emailed that to each of you this morning. Included in that update is the watch list, which is the condensed or focused view of the various bills that are being contemplated with the state legislature. So going forward, for the new members, I would suggest that's what you focus on, because that's really what Mr. Shaw will primarily speak to during his briefing. So with that, Chair Hitchen, I would ask Mr. Shaw just to launch into it.
Thank you. Morning or afternoon, Mr. Shaw.
Afternoon, Chair Hitchen. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. A lot to cover. Welcome to week 2 legislative session. Our tracking list, our large one, is up to 46 pages now. There are a little over 900 bills that have been introduced, so they're moving a pretty good clip. Last week, when I talked to you, they had just started, but they were having hearings already. They did, of course, the big ceremony on Wednesday where the Governor Ferguson did his inaugural address. He adopted 3 executive orders dealing with housing, reproductive rights, and permitting. And it was an interesting to watch just the House chamber. Some parts of the speech got applause from the one side of the aisle, and some got applause on the other. It was kind of real interesting on how it was received. These again, a lot of bills, a lot to talk about. I also sent Mr. Taylor the session cutoff calendar, and I just want to remind you of a few dates. We're going to see a lot of bills repeatedly, probably through this week, next week, and the following week. Then the 21st of February is the first bill cutoff. That's the policy committee cutoff. And about a week later on the 28th is the fiscal committee cutoff. The House of Origin. So if I was to focus, it's the policy committee cutoff and the House of Origin cutoff, when the House has to hear the House bills, Senate hear the Senate bills. That cutoff is the 12th of March. Now, the other thing that's not on this, that's going to be a big impact, is the revenue forecast will be released on the 20th of March. So that will pretty much, when that goes off, all the policy bills kind of move to the back. So these are the big dates that I wanted to bring to your attention. Having said that, if it was okay, I'd like to go to our watch list. And again, I send the big list, but these are the ones I think you've asked me to focus on. Let me just start off by something that occurred this morning. The Senate Law and Justice Committee heard Senate Bill 5060. That's the bill that's $100 million for law enforcement. It would pay 75% of salaries for about 3 years. I met with Governor Ferguson's policy staff at the end of last week to ask him about what the thinking is behind that, because a lot of folks who testified in favor of the bill still pointed out that unless there's ongoing funding, what you're doing is you're just pushing this problem a couple of years down the road. They'll have to have layoffs. They'll have to reduce force if they don't have an ongoing source of funding. This idea that you only pay for the first couple of years doesn't work for most local governments, and people are not going to base their budgets on that kind of outlook. So that was the testimony. When I asked the policy folks in the governor's shop about that, they said what they intend for this money is to pay for law enforcement that you recruit, and that this gets them through their training period. The idea that you can't put them on the street, they're not going to be line officers, but this will pay for that time period when you recruit them and you get them into the Criminal Justice Training Commission to get them certified. So they saw that money for that purpose, because I kind of pushed it. Would it be better perhaps to put it in the Criminal Justice Assistance account, the county Criminal Assistance account, to do it that way, allow us to do it over time? But that was their thinking, so I wanted to share that with you. Other things that are happening just today that are on our upcoming events list. The 1150, that's the RAP Act from last year, or the Re-RAP Act. That has a hearing at 4 o'clock today. It has some pushback, so we'll have to see how far it goes. I also have on here in the House Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee 1207. There's a number of bills that were introduced. Oh, thank you. Thanks for putting that up. That would bring money into the county. 1207 actually doesn't come from the county clerks. It comes from the Secretary of State's office. They want to raise a fee that the county clerks would collect, and the majority of the money would stay with the county clerk, but the remainder would go to pay for the archives, the digital archives. So the Secretary of State came to the clerks. The clerks, they're not opposing it, but they're still trying to mull it around. So that has a hearing 8 o'clock tomorrow. Human Services has 5052, which is it's an executive session, because they had this hearing last week. And we talked about the ability for law enforcement to be able to talk to juveniles and question them without an attorney. Right now, pretty much in most cases, you need to have an attorney present. 5052, Senator Solomon's bill, allows a little bit, if it's a sexual assault and a sex crime, you can interview, and it allows you to use that testimony if for impeachment purposes at a trial, but it limits it ability to use it if that particular suspect, that juvenile, was charged. Talking to the folks in the law enforcement community, they came out against this bill. Well, they came out and signed in other, but they would rather not have anything than go this route. There are other bills that are a bit broader, but this is the one that has a hearing, and I believe Senator Solomon figures this is as far as he can go to get a bill out of the Senate. But we'll just have to wait and see. I haven't seen what the House has done on this yet. Local government 1044. This is another bill, much like that clerk fee. This is another increase of $5 to $20 of the REACH fee that allows them to get software to help them do their jobs. It has a hearing on the 22nd. We'll have to see how that goes. It is a WACO, Washington Association of County Officials priority bill, but it has I'm meeting with the prime sponsor this afternoon to see what she thinks, how this is going to go. That'd be Representative Wiley. 5222 Senate Housing Committee. This is the some people refer to as rent control. This would limit rent increases, I believe, to 7%. We saw the House version get a hearing last week, so the Senate is going to have their hearing this week. In transportation, there's a couple bills I wanted to bring to your attention. 1098, this would create a pot of money for county roads for maintenance preservation. It is the priority bill for the County Roads Administration Board, CRAB, and they have asked if there's perhaps a Pierce County Council member that would like to testify in favor of that. I believe it's consistent with our legislative agenda. Here's my take on this bill. It's a good bill. I mean, any money to counties is a good bill, unless they were able to do some large revenue increase in the transportation realm. However, this bill is probably not going to go anywhere. Now, the transportation budget is about 6.6 billion in the whole over about 6-year period. I spoke with Senator Elias, the chair of Senate Transportation, this morning, and I spoke with Representative Fye, the chair of the House Transportation. It's unclear what they plan on doing with regards to transportation funding going forward. They have to do something. They have a big hole. A lot of the mega projects don't get done unless they're able to address it. It's just, at this point, there's not a lot of clarity. I don't expect you'll see this discussion in earnest until we get into March, as I mentioned, when the revenue forecast comes out. But here we go. Law and Justice has a couple of executive sessions. I wanted to draw your attention because it was a bill that was heard last week. I touched on it last week, 5071, the Senator Braun's bill. That is some of you know, current law, as far as child endangerment, it's methamphetamine is pretty much limited to methamphetamine. This would broaden it up to pretty much all controlled substances, including fentanyl. This had a good hearing. It's good to see that it's going to be set for a committee vote. And the other bill that's set is again the one I started off the conversation at 5060. So it'll be interesting to see if the committee passes it without amendments, or will they address the long-term funding concern that was raised today. Local government, and these are execs, I don't normally touch on this, but I wanted to kind of point out that there's this little bill, this 1054, this county ferry bill. We testified on it, Chair Hitchin and myself, and it had a good hearing, and it is set for exec for a committee vote on the 24th. So that's good to see. The other bill that's set for committee is committee vote is 1212. That's the citing of child care centers. That basically says it's a permitted use in cities and towns. You shall do this except in industrial areas. So that's moving forward. The rest of the list is just the things, the bills I thought you would want me to track. I will just quickly go through because there are some things here I think I want to make you aware of. The county treasurer cost bill, 1042. That's a bill that is, again, similar to the REIT bill for the assessors treasurers, similar to the clerk's bills. This would allow the treasurer to recoup some costs. The various sub-taxing districts they're not supportive of this bill. It hasn't been set for a hearing. I'm not sure it will. Again, I'm talking to the prime sponsor on this bill at 2 o'clock today to see if it's going to go anywhere. I've already talked about the county REIT that has a hearing this week, and the clerk bill, so I'm just going down a little bit. There was a bill on a county utility tax that was supposed to be heard the first week. It got pulled. I think the PUDs made their opposition kind of loud and clear, and so that bill doesn't appear to be moving. There is a bill that's new to our list that was introduced yesterday. It's 5404. That is the Public Defense Services Bill that the Washington State Association of Counties, WASAC, has introduced. And it just got a bill number. Real quick, what this bill does, it says that the state is responsible for 50% of indigent defense costs that will be calculated over 4 years, looking back from 2024. Then any growth the state will be responsible for. It has some provisions relating to supplanting. You need the Office of Public Defense can get their okay to supplant. There are some information, some data tracking responsibilities also involved in the bill in order to get the money. This bill again just got introduced. It's a WASAC bill. I'm not sure it will get a hearing. Again, I think they might wait till the budgets become, again, that revenue forecast on the 20th that I keep referencing, but it is introduced. I want to bring it to your attention. With that, I've kind of talked at you quite a bit, but I mean, if there's any questions, I mean, one that was on my list of things to mention. Last week, there was a hearing on a competency evaluation restoration bill, 1218. Real quick, the state would create a cap for the amount of evaluations, competency restorations that you could send to Western State. It's a county, how should I put this? It's based on the region of a county, the cap. Now that's problematic because this cap, if you go over the cap, you get penalized. You have to pay 100% plus of that cost. That money would go into a fund So if you came in and you didn't use your allotment, if you're under that cap, you would get some money back. Well, say in Pierce County, we're responsible, we would have to be the ones to pay if we go over that cap. Well, of course, you have independently elected officials driving a lot of this, the prosecutors, the judges. And what about the cities? Again, it's a cap for the county, but other entities could be responsible for putting the numbers into Western State so that you, as the legislative authority, would be responsible for covering the cost of all that. I met with the governor's staff on this issue as well. This was a bill from the Inslee administration. And there, I think a lot of us were wondering how much investment would the new regime have in this bill. I had a good conversation with they were still mulling it around themselves. I didn't get a lot of clarity whether they would support this. I think Representative Farber, she will continue to advocate for her bill on this issue. I believe there's a meeting that the county associations pulled together on that. It'd be interesting to see what she says. The hearing, a lot of the concerns were raised during the hearing. I thought it was a good hearing. I think Brad Banks from the county association did a very good job. Mike White testified for King County, but he also raised concerns on behalf of Snohomish and Pierce County as well. I'm not sure where this effort will go. I don't think it's going to look like this if it moves. And I don't think Senator Dingra in the Senate, she ran a bill 2 years ago on this, I don't think this is what she would intend to do. So a lot of unknowns on this. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the update and for the many, many meetings you are attending on our behalf. Appreciate it. Looking to my colleagues for questions. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Shaw, how are we with Airport REIT?
Last week, I was able to meet with Representative Fye and Representative Dent. Good conversations on both. Representative Dent, I have a bill draft with a blue sheet for signatures on it. I gave it to him last week. He was going around talking to his caucus. He told me he had planned on dropping it yesterday, but I did not get introduced that I've seen. I'm going to circle back with his office just to see if he's gotten the signatures he wanted. Representative Fye said if Representative Dent didn't want to prime it, he would, but he'll sign on to it. So I'm just kind of, Councilman, I'm kind of gently poking Representative Dent to kind of get this thing introduced so we get a bill number and get a hearing.
Okay. I mean, you know, we could stick Councilmember Denson on him. She,
I thought it was your turn.
he's kind of got a liking for you, so.
I know.
But yeah, he's more responsive to Councilmember Denson than
I
he is
don't know
to
if
me.
that's true, but I'm happy to reach out. He's been wonderful to work with.
We just want to make sure it doesn't fall between any gaps and something gets stuck in the hopper. So.
Yeah, I will I'll follow up with them today. Again, very nice man. I think he's trying to get a particular signature.
Mm.
I think he's in his caucus. I think that's what the holdup is. But like I said, I was really hoping I'd have a bill number for you today.
Okay.
And I'll warn Councilmember Denson, I do have a request in for a meeting with Representative Richards in her neck of the woods over there, because now that I've gotten some of the main signatures, I fear I'll put the bite on him as well. So I was going to ask her if she would also reach out to him.
Happy to help.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the questions and the work on that fix that will help support our airports. Any other questions from my colleagues on the work before us this week? Councilmember Denson.
Thank you. Mr. Shaw, you mentioned House Bill 1212, the citing of childcare centers. I think I heard you say that this would just apply to cities and towns for
Yes.
outright permitting for childcare centers. It would not apply to counties, correct? Or to unincorporated areas?
That's correct. It just applies to cities and towns, and it's had a hearing, it's moved forward. There's another bill that it doesn't have a hearing yet that I've been tracking on childcare. I believe it's 1033 that kind of gives us more authority with regards to adopt and maintain ordinances for licensing and such and regulation of that. That bill has not yet been scheduled for a hearing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I'm not seeing anyone else indicating a desire to speak. I know that I am going to attend in person the meeting tomorrow on the True Blood Fix bill, if that's the correct title that I'm going to use for now. And have that conversation in person. So that'll help, hopefully. And I know that staff on our end are really going through and going with the lens of Pierce County and some of the impacts to us personally as a county because of Western State being here and some of the other impacts that we've seen as far as behavioral health, True Blood and competency hearings really impacting our budget and our jail in general when the second largest hospital for mental health is our jail. It's a problem. So thank you for your work. We'll let you maybe grab lunch or go to your next hearing or whatever you're up to today, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, anything else on that end?
No, Chair Hitchin. I think that concludes that item.
Okay, perfect. So we are on to item number 3, which is a review of today's council agenda. Ms. Long.
All right, thank you. So this is this afternoon's regular council meeting agenda. It is amended, as you can see. We'll start with your consent agenda. You have 2 items for introduction and scheduling. Both of these are ordinances. First is O 2025-500, and that is granting a supplemental franchise number 1 to the OHOP Mutual Light Company for the location of power lines. You will be referring this to EIDC and setting the final for February 25th. The next one is O 2025-501, and this is granting a non-exclusive franchise to the Shore Acres Water Company for the location of water lines. This is for referral to EIDC, and you'll be setting the final on this one for February 18th. Moving to your final action items on the consent. Under resolutions, you have R 2025-100, and this is confirming the appointment of Executive Mello to the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority or Sound Transit Board, and that is for final. The next section we have is section 8, resolutions, and you have 2 items here. The first is R 2024-266. This was continued from last week's council meeting, and this is establishing your standing committees, naming the committee memberships and officers, and setting meeting times and days for those standing committees for the year 2025. And there is 1 amendment to this. And the other under section 8 is our 2024-267. This was also continued from last week's council meeting. And this is making appointments of council members and staff to positions on external boards, commissions, committees, and other organizations for the year 2025. And this is for final, and there is 1 amendment to this proposal, and that is your agenda for this afternoon's regular council meeting.
Thank you. Do we go through each of the amendments? Is that typically?
Yeah. So
Okay. Any questions on just the general agenda? Okay, so we'll go through amendments.
all right, so the first amendment, you have 1 amendment to R 2024-266. This is your standing committees. As you'll see in the amendment, it's a striker amendment. So it's basically remove the current Exhibit A, which has blanks in it, and replace with what is in your packets. And do you want me to walk through each committee? Or- I mean, I'm assuming you guys have all, or you're familiar with the amendment?
I think I would hope
And
so.
days and times of the committee meetings remains the same. And so the amendment establishes your memberships and officers.
Okay, thank you.
We love surprises.
Thank you. Let's go to the second one. I think this is the one that has, maybe we want to go through a little bit more detail.
Okay, yeah, so it's the same thing. It's a striker amendment, removing the current Exhibit A, which has blanks, and replacing it with the attachment to your amendment memo. This is lengthy, so there's 4 pages of external boards, commissions, and committees for which the names of the appointed members has been inserted. Most are council members. There are some staff appointments as well. So, you know, take a moment to look through this if you're familiar with it or not, and if there are any changes, we can talk about those too.
Thank you for that. I'm realizing I had 2 copies, so I can share. Questions or comments on that? If you do, please see me. I think I captured feedback that I heard. Okay. Not seeing anyone push a button. We'll go ahead and go on to the next item, which is grant reports, which there are none. So that brings us to item number 4. And if somebody finds something, chime in early, but review of committee schedule for the week.
All right, so this afternoon, of course, at 3, you have your regular council meeting. Tomorrow morning, beginning at 10 a.m., you do have a performance audit committee meeting. The agenda items include the introduction of new members, the election of officers, and a discussion of the 2025 work program. And then the previously scheduled 1:30 special meeting of the Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors has been canceled for Wednesday. So those are your meetings for the remainder of this week.
Okay, buckle up. We're gonna get busy in February, everybody. But since there's not a lot there, we'll go ahead and move on to external boards and commissions. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. So just one item to report on this afternoon, and that's Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Board. Executive Board meets the 23rd at 10 a.m. There's one item on that agenda, one action item that I just want to point out, and that is an action item to approve recommendations related to the Consolidated Grant Program. This is a program that provides funding for specialized transportation services such as Beyond the Borders. PSRC is making their recommendation to the State Department of Transportation. The State Department of Transportation is ultimately the decision maker, but this particular grant process allows the regional planning organization to rank projects and assign points that then help those projects when WSDOT is doing its scoring and evaluation. So I want to point out that there are 2 county projects that are tiers 2 and 3. I think they use A, B, C, D, E, F for their tiers. So tiers B and C. The first is Beyond the Borders. So that is on the list for the region, proposing that a portion of the region's points be assigned to that particular project. And then the second county project, that's tier C. On the list is the Coordinated Transportation Coalition. This is funding to help staff that coalition, which helps to facilitate, coordination amongst the specialized transportation providers in the county. So those are 2 county projects that are on the list or that would benefit the residents of Pierce County. I just want to make certain that the members are aware of and our representative to the executive board is aware of. So that's what I have to report out today. No other committees of PSRC meet this week. And PCRC met last week, as you're aware. So
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Taylor or any other boards and commissions? Councilmember Ayala, want to update us on JMAC? Not to put you on the spot, but I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. So JMAC did meet last week. It was the first meeting of the year. There were new chair and vice chair nominations and appointments there. I was nominated and accepted the chair position for JMAC, and Port Commissioner Keller is the vice chair. In that meeting, we did something that doesn't normally happen, which is we did breakout groups and had small discussions around the priorities from the December session. So really putting in some action items or information that should be surfacing to the JMAC space. And so between now and the February meeting, there will be a calendaring of those events. And that will roll out in the second Friday of February.
Thank you for that. Any other boards and commissions? No, we're off to a slow start. I know Board of Health met last week, and we delayed voting on leadership because Tacoma was completely absent for some reason, and I never actually did figure out why, but so we just delayed that. So thank you to Alternate Denson and but you were there and we couldn't change it because again, Tacoma wasn't present. We felt like it was important to have that portion of their voice. But should the proposal go through today with the amendment, Councilmember Yambe serving on the Board of Health means cities and towns will have to find a new representative, but that'll be a kind of a smooth transition. And Councilmember Vice Chair Herrera has been doing a fantastic job of making sure we bring Pierce County's rural portions, also veterans issues to the table. So appreciate your voice. And then Councilmember Denson as the alternate, because she will continue to be a champion for the Key Pen and septic systems, which is appreciated, I know, by many in our county. But excited to kind of continue with that work, and hopefully the agenda, we will actually get leadership done and move from there. Seeing no one else indicating an update, we will move to discussion of administrative items. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. So just a few items to report out on today, and I think the chair is probably going to touch on these items as well. So first is council retreat. So it is coming that time of year where the council would hold its annual retreat. So staff is starting to plan for that event. We've identified 2 potential dates for the retreat. The first date, March 13th, that's a Thursday. The second date, March 27th, also a Thursday. The March 13th date looks to be the preferred date based upon what I can see on each of the council members' calendars as well as staff member calendars. We're exploring venues for the retreat right now. With conversation with the chair, we're leaning towards the 1501 Market Street building. If we can make that happen, that'll give the council an opportunity to test out that new building, get more familiar with it. And so we're looking at the logistics related to having the retreat there. The retreat will be a special meeting. Right now, it's not currently planned to be broadcast. I know we have broadcast retreats in the past. It's a logistical challenge with PCTV to get everything set up. So right now, we're not planning for it to be broadcast via PCTV, although we certainly would have the opportunity for potential participation via Zoom. As far as a draft agenda goes, staff is really looking for some feedback from members on the potential agenda. Like the items that we have lined up right now for consideration are one, a review of Open Public Meetings Act and Public Records Act, which is what we traditionally do at the retreat. It's just a refresher for members. Staff would like to go through and provide a brief status on the 2023-2025 council priorities that you previously adopted and you emphasized in this biennial budget, just where things stand relative to those priorities currently. And then conclude it with a focus on the future. So the 2026-2027 biennium, what the priorities of the council are. And this will give opportunity for the members to the council to weigh in with their priorities. In prior years, one of the products that have come out of the retreat is a resolution that goes to the executive that outlines, budgetary priorities. You did that for this most recent biennial budget. I thought it worked well. Staff would suggest that perhaps that's something you may want to consider this time as well. The timing's good. As members know, we're going into the council will go into a new budget adoption process for the next biennium this fall. So timing is good in that regard. So that's the retreat. Staff is looking, of course, for feedback from the members and the chair. And Madam Chair, I don't know if you have anything you want to add regarding the retreat. Right now, I can pause if you do.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I think just the biggest thing is I really appreciated the work we did to prepare the resolution to send to our former executive that made sure priorities from our individual districts, but also collectively, so that it wasn't a surprise when the executive went into his budgeting process with his departments. He knew where we stood. So when we were going to address things that we didn't see, we had a document to lean back on. Times may change, but I thought that process was really helpful. And I think with 2 new council members, instead of doing all our priorities, really focusing on those priorities that impact our budget, I think will be a good way to kind of learn a little about their priorities, refresh our own priorities, what's changed. We don't have ARPA dollars on the table. So really thinking about what are areas that are of high need or high impact that we may want to make sure that we don't want to see lost as we go into probably a belt tightening time for Pierce County. So I think it really makes a lot of sense. But again, we will kind of figure that out together. And then the other thing I'm interested in and thought was really helpful was a chance for each chair of the different committees, the chair and vice chair, to really kind of talk about a little bit about their work plan. They may not have it finalized because we're starting a little late, but just what are things you're thinking about having on your work plan this year? It helps the staff develop things, and could be things going on in your district that you think are important to a particular committee that maybe you're not on, and you want to make sure that the chair and vice chair is aware. It's a great way to do that. So as they're establishing their work plan, they can create space for that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's not a 2-day retreat. We're doing it all in one. So we may have to streamline, maybe too ambitious. I'm a huge over planner, everybody, so get used to it. But I would rather have enough on our plate to get through this work, get something done, actually have something come out of this retreat. So any questions? Okay, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, so Madam Chair, with that, I will put out a calendar hold from March 13th. Some members have it blocked and held as we finalize the details for the retreat. Parliamentary procedure training. This is really Ms. Long, but I just wanted to note for the members that weren't at rules this morning that our office is planning a parliamentary procedure training through Jurassic Parliament for the 29th in council chambers. Susan, you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so this will be from 10 to about 1. So plan accordingly. It will be a special study session of the council. We'll have Ann McFarlane here, who is very well known for her work in parliamentary procedure and her trainings all over the country, literally. And so we're really excited to have her here, and we'll be in chambers. I think council may be up on the dais, so you can have some real life training with the mics and the motions and all the rest of that. So we're excited, and staff is welcome. It is a meeting open to the public. Really encourage the clerks for sure, and any other staff who are interested and can make the time to do so to attend to either in person or via Zoom. So
Thank you for getting on that coordinated for us. And I think really important, as many members could be here, especially if you're chair or vice chair, which almost all of us are. So actually all of us are at some point in shape. So just always good to get that refresher and see how things work. So thank you for coordinating that. And if you have a toy dinosaur, maybe bring it. She calls it Jurassic. Anyways,
Oh,
you'll,
okay.
you'll get it. You'll understand. You'll start thinking, you'll get it. Yeah, so.
All right,
Mr.
just
Taylor.
two other items to touch on. Federal Legislative Affairs briefing. Traditionally, the council gets a first quarter introduction and briefing from the Federal Government Affairs contractor. I'm working on getting that finalized, lined up for February the 3rd at Monday study session. So Mr. Dale Learn from Gordon Thomas Honeywell, who the county has under contract for federal legislative affairs services, has indicated his availability. Ask him to speak to the council. First of all, introduce himself to the new members and kind of a refresher as to what services he provides for the county. And then ask him to talk about kind of, what he sees as far as activity at the federal level, like expectations for 2025. And then lastly, to provide updates on congressionally directed funding projects, which the members that, the prior members of the council from last year are aware of that process. Some of the new members may be aware as well. Well, it's essentially the old earmarks process. So to speak to the county projects that were forwarded into that process, what its expectations are. And if there are other items that are of interest to members, if you want to flag those for me or with the chair, then we can certainly ask Mr. Learn in advance to be prepared to cover those items also. So that's federal legislative affairs. And then lastly, hiring clerk to the council. I've briefed this before. We did receive a pool of very qualified applicants. Initial review of those applications has occurred. I'm going to do phone screening later this week for a number of the candidates, and I'm working with the chair right now to finalize the interview panel and interview dates. Looking to schedule the interviews by Friday, February the 7th. So to keep this process moving so that the council can make a decision as to hiring for that very important role. And then policy analyst, senior policy analyst, that recruitment closed yesterday, the 20th. Looked at the applications briefly this morning, have Ms. Waterland going through those applications and evaluating them currently. Kind of the punchline here is the council is fortunate, received quite a few applications, about 3 dozen actually. So a lot of individuals were interested in potentially working with the council in that role. And so we're going through that information right now. That's what I have for administrative updates today, council members.
Thank you for the overview and review and the work on hiring. We will eventually be fully staffed. That's the goal. Any questions for Mr. Taylor? Okay. So that brings us to chair's topics. So the first item I listed was just communications. I put out an email asking if there's something specific you need from me as far as communications, please let me know. Within the OPMA, happy to set up meetings depending on what people want. I'm usually here. But please feel free to reach out if there's something going on in your district or policy or just something. The more I can help and assist you, I'll be successful. The better we are as a council. So happy to facilitate and support in any way I can. And as I said earlier, I'm an over communicator, so expect that I will occasionally be pushing out emails with the reminder of not to reply all, but that you will get information because I try not to blindside people. I feel like that's bad form. And the upcoming trainings have been spoken of. Just really excited to kind of learn and work together. I think that's very helpful, and actually doing it here in Chambers will allow us, for those that haven't used the intercom system and the microphone system, it'd be really helpful to actually go through this whole process of queuing people and that whole thing. And so while we'll learn the process, we'll actually do the learning. So I think that's helpful. And then the last little reminder that I want to put on here, I have 2 things. One is in-district meetings. We all do an in-district meeting. We also are going to be doing a budget season. And on behalf of our staff, I'd just kind of like to flag, if you can schedule to do your in-district meeting before the end of August or after November. So try to keep that September, October, November time for budgets would be really, really helpful. I know that we all want to try and get them in at different times, but they do take a lot of work to coordinate. So the sooner you can get one on the calendar, the better. It also allows for your colleagues to be able to attend in person if we get them scheduled sooner rather than later, because I don't know about everybody else, but evenings get filled up with other things. And so if they get on my calendar, it's easier for me to remember to say no when somebody asks me to be somewhere else. So just want to always prioritize our work as a council. Councilmember Denson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let folks know that we've identified June 2nd as the District 7 in district meetings. So we're going to be working that through the system for approval, but you can sketch that into your calendars. We're hoping to start at 5:30, and I'm going to do my best to keep the agenda simple this year. It's going to have a lot to do with the Fox Island Bridge and maybe some related things, but we'll try to keep it constrained a bit. So that's June 2nd.
Thank you for that. I look forward to a simple, I'm curious what a simple agenda will be from Councilmember Denson. Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. I am not as well prepared as Councilmember Denson. We are planning for April for District 4 meeting, coordinating with a few folks, but we should have a date by next week.
Okay. So in April for District 4, and again, you didn't have to show up. I didn't assign homework. It was just letting you know, trying to get them on your radar as sooner rather than later is always helpful. I have 2 items. I'm gonna wrote my list here. So WASAC sent out an invite for a reception down in Olympia. If you didn't get it, happy to share it. It's gonna be at one of the restaurants outside or near the Capitol. And you have to RSVP by the 27th of January. So let me know if you didn't get that, if you're interested. And then we are scheduling headshots for all of us and then a group photo for us. If you've ever been on our website and seen how every single one of our photos, our heads are different sizes. Some of us have, backgrounds are pretty good, but I just thought clean start. We have 2 new council members that need headshots. Some of us used old headshots. Councilmember Herrera, I have no idea if you actually got a headshot from the county, but like doing this all together. So we're looking at 2 dates, Tuesday, the 28th or the 4th in February. I like the 28th because there's no EIDC meeting in the morning. So for those that might want a little bit more time prepping and not be so rushed, you would be able to get here and be here in the afternoon. So it'd be scheduled for some time between Tuesday study session and our council meeting. But I'm looking to my colleagues to see if anybody has any issues with that and hoping all of us will participate in headshots. Headshots. Councilmember Krueger.
You said next Tuesday?
Is next Tuesday the 28th? Yeah. No.
Said February, right?
Or February 4th was the other
Yeah.
date.
Well, that would be preferable. And at what time?
It'd be between Tuesday study session and the council meeting, kind of like a block in there,
The 4th would be
preferable.
more conducive.
Need a little more prep time. Got it. Any other colleagues have, both were available. I'm fine either way. I just was looking at the relaxed morning, but. Okay, well, Mr. Dominique, can we work on getting that scheduled for, and I'll work with Priscilla for the 4th? Okay, thank you. And that is all I had. So,
Do you have a photographer in mind already or someone's coming? Okay.
yes.
Professional?
Yes, it is a professional photographer who will come and help us with backgrounds and, yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, we are to other business, which starts with communications. So Mr. Dominique.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the council. Brian Dominique, Communications Manager. I actually have some communications updates today, so not all proclamations. I'm excited about that. The first county legislator of 2025 went out on Friday, January 10th. For our newer council members, that is our Office of the County Council newsletter. It's like our flagship publication. It goes out every 2 weeks. And we also have a blog called the Council Compass. The first entry of that went out on Thursday, January 16th. And this also will go out every 2 weeks, and they'll offset. So when the legislature goes out, a blog entry won't go out. When the blog entry goes out, the legislator won't go out. We're also working on getting our podcast back up and running. These don't have a standardized release interval as of yet. Still kind of in the pilot phase here, trying to navigate the podcast space. But our goal is 6 episodes this year. And we're less restricted because most council members will be able to talk with us. So that will be helpful. And then the chair already mentioned this, but I've been working with our operations coordinator on securing a professional photographer. As the chair said, they can come in, they're going to do backgrounds, lighting, all that stuff. And based on the conversation we had here, I'll work on getting that set up. And then for social media, our focus this year is going to be expanding our use of Instagram. Our communications coordinator, Jair, is going to be heading that up. And then we're going to try to grow our presence on Facebook. X, formerly Twitter, is going to become a secondary channel for us. We're going to use that more for like the kind of like the big hard news. Not so much the list of what the council's up to. That's going to be more of the Facebook space and the Instagram space. We have talked, Jair and I, about the merits of creating a LinkedIn page. There's an audience on LinkedIn that we don't normally communicate with. That's namely like government to government communication, business to government, that type of space. So we're still exploring that. I'll have more to come, but I'll let the council know if we're going to take that step. And then jumping down to proclamations. So earlier today, the Rules and Operations Committee removed a proclamation that was scheduled for Tuesday. So we have no proclamation on the agenda today. And then the executive has indicated a desire to sign on to proclamations. This was a practice in the past prior to me. And if the council approves this, what I'll do is I'll just send the executive and his team the proclamations after Tuesday's study session, the same way I would do with the council members. And that would give his option to either opt in or opt out. But when it comes to the actual content of the proclamation, that stays with the council. So the executive wouldn't be providing like, we want this in there, we want that. That still lies with the council. Their decision point is whether he signs it or not. So if the council is okay with that, that'll be my process moving forward to accommodate the executive's office. Seeing heads nodding, so.
Any feedback or questions on that? Not seeing any.
All right, great.
Did you have something, Councilman?
Before he's done.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And finally, there is a Black History Month proclamation included in your council packet. This is scheduled for 2 weeks from now, so we'll go to Rules and Operations next week. And then if you have any edits, just let me know. Let the sponsor know. If you'd like to be added as a sponsor, let me know and we can make that happen. I'll work with our clerks team. Right now, we just have the one sponsor being Councilmember Denson. And if you have any guests you'd like to invite, please let me know. I can work with you on how we contact them. That can come from your office or come from me. Doesn't matter either way to myself. But it really helps when we script out the event that day. Our clerk of the council puts together a great script for the chair with the people that are going to be here, and it just helps the meeting flow. So if I can know who's going to be here, I can help facilitate that. And pending any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you for the update. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to, you talked about February 4th for the headshots. I know I'll be gone that day to the Northwest Aerospace Manufacturing Convention up north. So if you have a couple dates, that might help.
I think we can do
So
that.
Just heads up on that.
Okay. we'll chat more and make sure, because we want to make sure everybody gets a picture. Thanks for the heads up. Any other comments? For my new colleagues, as far as proclamations, if you do have feedback edits or people you want to invite and you're not a sponsor, please coordinate with Mr. Dominique so we don't have 12 people expecting to receive a proclamation. While we like to celebrate, we also need to manage expectations in the meeting. So we kind of lean on whoever is the sponsors to kind of figure out who their intended audience is. But Mr. Dominique's office is gonna make sure, because we are all separately elected, that we aren't inviting too many people or inviting the same people and think we're gonna have a wider audience, whatever that's gonna be. So just helps with coordination with your office, your council assistants and county staff or council staff. Thank you, Mr. Dominique, and appreciate the heads up on the new blog.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments or feedback or questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page pertaining to the resolution 2024-253, which is the rental housing NOFA that's moving forward. I think we have a final on it for the February 11th. And I just want to make sure that we get all of our questions answered on that.
Thank you. I know we've talked about doing a motion to change the date. We're waiting on some feedback from the prosecuting attorney to see what, because I don't want to move it and then move it again, or do we start it in Health and Human Services and then move it? But we're waiting to see how complicated it could be so that we can be efficient with our motions and not have to move things multiple times as we did a couple times last year.
Okay.
Thank you for flagging that though. Any other questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Have a wonderful rest of the day. See you here at 3.